then our economy will be hurt. There will be consequences. Whereas if we continue with this environmental atrocity, what happens? Nothing. Is there any trade retaliation? I mean, think about the World Trade Organization, what happens when you break one of their little rules. Canada was targeted because we banned an additive in gasoline. We were sued. Why are there no consequences to breaking these agreements? Our governments have failed and they will fail. They're not going to enforce these agreements. But we know how to do this. Boycotts, sanctions, divestment. Sound familiar, anyone? I feel as a Canadian that this needs to happen to my country. This needs to happen to my country because the government that is doing this, our Tory government, they're doing it with a minority. They don't even have a majority in Parliament. They have a minority. And they could very well get a majority if they keep getting rewarded for this type of behavior, if there are no consequences. So these are the types of actions that I think everything should be on the table. Everything should be on the table. Now, I want to just close briefly by talking a little bit about tactics. Because I know there's lots of debates going on within the movement about what types of tactics to use in the next few days, in the next couple of weeks. Our movement is changing, it's evolving, we're learning from past mistakes. And I think we must. I think we have to deprive the corporate media of their insatiable hunger for turning a story that is about the world versus COP15 and its failures into a story about activists versus cops. That's not the story. As a rule, our actions should embody the future that we want. Democratic, respectful of one another, and not to get too flaky, filled with love for the movement that we're trying to build, for the communities that we're trying to protect and transform. I firmly believe that, but I also believe this. Rage has a place here, and we mustn't forget it. What we are witnessing at the Bella Center is an almost unbelievable betrayal of past promises, like the ones my country has made, of past treaties, which have been made a mockery of. And then there is the betrayal that Barack Obama represents. Not just a betrayal of his own voters, but of the incredible hope and faith that was placed in him by the whole world. I don't think Barack Obama is the worst US president by any means. I think he's way better than most. But I have certainly never witnessed a US president blow as many once in a generation opportunities as this US president. He has blown so many opportunities in his 1 year. It was absolutely unforgivable, and he needs to hear from the world. He needs to hear from the world here. He had a historic democratic mandate for change. He was given a blank check to stimulate the US economy. He could have spent it however he wanted to. He spent most of it on tax cuts and reinvesting in the car economy and highways. He shortchanged public transit on a massive scale. Oh, and the other thing he had in the palm of his hands when he took office was the entire financial sector. In the palm of his hands, they owned it if they wanted it. That means they could have asked anything of these banks that they controlled, including that they direct their lending to a transformation of the economy. It could have happened. It didn't happen. They lost the moment. This is a massive betrayal. It doesn't happen a lot. It hasn't happened since the 30s. It's not going to happen again soon. And we cannot let this pass. We have a right to be angry. We have a responsibility to be angry. Rage is an appropriate response to what is going on right now with this failure. We channel that rage intelligently. We are smart. We are tactical. But if we we try to erase that rage, we become part of the problem. Because how else will the world know how serious this failure is if we restrict ourselves to formulaic marches and polite panel discussions? It's not enough. We show the stakes of this struggle with our willingness to take risks. It has always been thus. Let us not belittle the fine tradition of civil disobedience. My friend John Jordan, who's here, he's one of the mad inventors behind the soon-to-be unveiled bike block. I was talking to him the other day, and he described Copenhagen as, he said, if Seattle was the movement's coming out party, Copenhagen will be its coming of age. But he added this: I hope we have grown up to become much more disobedient, because life on this world of ours may well be terminated because of too many acts of obedience. Like John, arrived here by some creative carbon neutral means. Maybe you biked, maybe you boated, maybe you took solar powered buses. I'm ashamed to admit that I didn't swim here from Canada. I contributed to my country's already grotesque carbon footprint. I booked my ticket a couple of months ago, back when there was still a glimmer of hope about what the official summit could produce. I admit that I got sucked into it. And as the standards for success lowered and then lowered some more, I actually thought a few times about canceling, whether it was worth the carbon that I was going to be emitting in order to come here. And I even thought maybe all of us who are flying here should just cancel. Maybe that should be our act of disobedience. Why were thousands of us burning fossil fuels to get here and resolve to do next to nothing? But here we are, at a conference that was billed as the last chance to save the world, and which has been announced as a failure before it began. We have to somehow offset the carbon we emitted coming here. How do we do it? We do it, or we try to do it, by using this incredible space, this historic convergence, to build the kind of global mass movement that will never, ever let our leaders get away with this kind of criminal negligence again. That is our task, my friends. It is awesome and fearsome. Think of it as the mother of all carbon offsets. Thank you.